My grandmother always said the wind carried the old stories down from the peaks of Mount Cinder. Not in whispers you could hear, but in feelings. A sudden chill when the sun was high, a shiver that ran through your bones when the valley was still. She warned me about the things that lingered in the high reaches, things that weren't quite earth, not quite air, but something else entirely. We lived in a village nestled deep in a valley, a place called Stonehaven. Life here was simple, bound by the seasons and the ancient customs. The most important of these was the weaving. Every household had a loom, passed down through generations. Our lives, it was said, were woven into the very cloth we produced. Each thread a day, each pattern a memory. My grandmother, Lyra, was the finest weaver in Stonehaven, her fingers nimble even in her old age. But there was one loom she never touched, kept hidden in a dust-sheeted corner of her attic, a massive, dark wood contraption that seemed to hum with a silent, ancient energy. I remember the day I asked her about it. I was just a child, curious and full of questions. "That, my dear," she said, her voice dropping to a near whisper, "is the Lyra, and it is never, ever to be touched." Her eyes, usually so warm, held a flicker of something I couldn't quite name, fear, perhaps, or a deep, ancestral sadness. The Lyra was different from our other looms. It wasn't just old, it felt older, as if it had existed before trees grew tall or rivers ran clear. Its frame was carved with symbols I didn't recognize, swirling patterns that seemed to shift and writhe if you stared too long. The wood itself was a deep, almost black mahogany, smooth to the touch despite its age. It had no shuttle, no bobbins, no spools of yarn near it. Just the vast, empty frame and the weight of my grandmother's unspoken warning. As I grew older, the Lyra became a silent presence in our home, a dark secret in the attic that everyone in the village knew about, but no one spoke of aloud. It was the one thing that truly bound Stonehaven together, not through shared stories, but through a shared silence. Years passed. I became a weaver myself, my fingers learning the rhythm of the warp and weft, my mind finding peace in the repetitive motion. My grandmother, Lyra, grew frail. On her deathbed, she clutched my hand, her grip surprisingly strong. "The Lyra, Alani," she rasped, her breath shallow. "Promise me you will never seek to understand it, never touch its threads." Her eyes pleaded with me, a desperate final plea. I promised, of course. How could I not? But after she was gone, a different kind of curiosity began to bloom in my heart, a seed of defiant wonder. What secret could be so dangerous? Why the absolute prohibition? The Lyra wasn't just a loom, it was a legend whispered about in hushed tones by the oldest villagers, a relic of a time before the valley knew its own name. The stories hinted at its power, its ability to weave not just cloth, but fate itself, to mend what was broken or unravel what was whole. One autumn evening, a terrible storm swept through the valley. It wasn't just rain and wind, it was a fury I'd never witnessed. Trees groaned, houses shook, and the river, usually so calm, became a raging torrent. The next morning, the bridge connecting Stonehaven to the outside world was gone, swept away. But worse, much worse, was the news that reached us from the mountain pass. A small group of hunters, including my childhood friend, Kale, had been caught in a landslide. Their bodies were trapped, unreachable. The village was devastated. Grief hung heavy in the air, a shroud woven from despair. The elders spoke of waiting for spring, for the ice to thaw, for the mountain to release its hold. But I couldn't. Kale was like a brother to me. I remembered Lyra's stories about the Lyra, about its power to mend. My promise began to fray, thin as an old thread. That night, under a sky still bruised purple from the storm, I climbed to the attic. The Lyra sat in the gloom, even darker, even more imposing than I remembered. I approached it slowly, my heart a frantic drum against my ribs. A faint, almost imperceptible hum vibrated in the air around it, a sound that seemed to resonate deep within my own bones. The carvings on its frame seemed to pulse with a dim, inner light, twisting and turning like living things. There was no thread, no yarn, but as I drew closer, I saw it, a single, shimmering strand of light, impossibly thin, stretched taut between the top and bottom beams of the loom. It wasn't made of cotton or wool, it seemed woven from moonlight and pure energy, a thread of pure existence. This was it. This was the thread of fate, the string that Lyra had warned me about. My fingers trembled as I reached out. The air around the thread was cold, despite the warmth of my skin, and seemed to resist my touch, like reaching into still water. But I pushed through, my resolve hardened by grief. My fingertip brushed the thread. It felt like nothing and everything, all at once, like touching a memory or a future. And then, a sudden, blinding flash, not of light, but of understanding. Images flooded my mind. Kale, laughing, running through fields of wildflowers. Kale, carving our initials into an oak tree. Kale, trapped beneath the tons of rock and ice, his last breath a cloud in the frozen air. The thread pulsed, and I knew, instinctively, how to weave with it. It wasn't about shuttles or bobbins. It was about intention, about pouring my will into the lyra, making it twist and reform the very fabric of what was . I began to weave. My hands moved without conscious thought, guided by an instinct far older than myself. I envisioned Kale, alive. I saw the land slide undone, the earth reforming, the bridge rebuilt. I poured all my sorrow, all my love, all my desperate hope into the single, luminous thread. The lyra hummed louder now, a deep, resonant tone that filled the attic, rattling the dust from the rafters. The light intensified, swirling around me, wrapping me in a cocoon of pure, unadulterated power. I felt a strange kind of exhaustion, a draining of my very essence, but I didn't stop. I couldn't. I was weaving Kale back into existence, pulling him from the cold grasp of death, restoring what the mountain had taken. It felt right, pure, and utterly exhilarating. I was defying fate, mending the broken tapestry of our lives. Finally, the hum faded, the light receded, leaving the attic in heavier darkness than before. I staggered backward, breathless, my body aching as if I'd run for days. Silence. Then, a voice from downstairs. "Alani, you'll never believe it. The most incredible thing. It was my mother." I stumbled down, my legs weak. She stood by the open door, beaming. "Kale, he just walked in. Says he got lost in the blizzard, but found his way back." My heart soared. I had done it. I rushed to the window, and there, walking up the path, was Kale. He looked exactly as he always had. He smiled, waved. A rush of relief, then a deep, chilling dread. As he came closer, I noticed it. His eyes, they were the color of the lyra's dark wood, and in their depths I saw not the warmth of Kale, but the ancient, swirling patterns of the loom. His skin was too smooth, his movements too precise. He was Kale, but he wasn't. The lyra had woven something, yes, but it wasn't Kale. It was a thread-forged copy, a flawless, soulless imitation. And as I looked at my mother, her face radiant with joy, I realized the cost. The lyra had given us Kale back, but it had taken my mother's memory of ever losing him. It hadn't just changed fate, it had unraveled the past, rewriting reality itself, leaving me the only one who remembered the true threads. The hum of the lyra, silent now, seemed to echo in my bones, a cold promise of what I had unleashed. And I knew, with a certainty that froze me to my core, that it would never be truly silent again. Thank you for listening. If this story found you in the dark, subscribe and turn on notifications. A new tale waits every night.